Hi, everyone. I think I'll use the microphone. Can you hear me? I'll stick with it for now, and then we'll see. So welcome to this a lively conversation session about how to better support and empower early career researchers in emerging research economies. So I think we're coming to this topic from different perspectives, but at a time when inequities for ECRs are on the rise. That may be due to budget constraints, cost inflation. That's due to lack of access to peer-reviewed content, lack of access to dedicated research AI tools as well. So we want this to be a very practical conversation. So looking at the key challenges that we're seeing, that you are seeing from your perspectives as well for your ECRs. We also do want this to be a very interactive conversation. So we'll have obviously dedicated Q&As, but feel free at any time to raise your hand, ask a question. It's supposed to be a conversation. Also, what we do have is we'll do a little bit of polling, if I can find the right key to move this forward. Yeah. Obviously, the usual Charleston slides. And then we'll have 3 or 4 poll questions for you, which you'll be able to access via the QR code on the screen. I'll let you know when each becomes available, and I'll obviously tell you about what we see. The first question will be about just the demographics of the room, where are we all sitting. We'll move to introductions in a little minute, but we're all coming from different perspectives, platforms, libraries, and publishers as well. So, okay. In which case, I think in terms of the session, we're going to start with introductions and lightning perspectives, so where are we coming from when looking at this question. We'll then have 4 short case studies, very practical case studies in regards to what has worked from our perspective. And then the last part of the session, we'll be looking at Q&A. There's one question in particular that we'd like to address as a group, so I hope that you'll join us for that as well. But now I will pass over to Chris.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Chan. I'm the university librarian at Hong Kong Baptist University. And if you're not familiar with Hong Kong's university system, we have 8 government-funded universities. Hong Kong Baptist University is one of the smaller institutions, not too small. We have about 14,000 students. And we are comprehensive as well. So we have programs ranging from the pure sciences, social sciences, School of Communication, and we're very proud to be the only university in Hong Kong with a School of Chinese Medicine as well. So for this topic this morning, my major focus will be in relation to our research students. So we have about 400 research students, both MPhil and PhD students. And we're very fortunate at HKBU Library. Our students are mandated to have some training from us in scholarly communication and publishing. As I'm sure everyone is aware, there's huge pressure on research students to publish. It's essentially evolved over the years at HKBU. It's an expectation that our PhD students should publish at least 1 article prior to their graduation. So enabling equitable access to resources, to publishing opportunities, this is going to be super vital for us. So later on, when I share my case study is going to be details of a very unscientific survey that I conducted of our current research students, asking them what it is they need. And I'll go into some details, but in summary, what we're hearing from our research students is that they need tailored support, because they often face different challenges depending on their discipline, their background, and their own experience. So I'll leave it there and pass it to Alex.
Morning, everyone. So thank you, Chris, and delighted to be here. And thanks to Sarah for all her organization and getting this panel together. I am coming from a slightly different corner today. There haven't been many commissioning editors here at this conference, but I am a senior commissioning editor in the Humanities Books program at Springer Nature, where I've been for 8 years. I started off covering only the Springer imprint, covering Southeast and East Asia and HSS, and more recently have expanded that to also cover our Palgrave Macmillan imprint for humanities, covering APAC more widely. I'm a South African originally, but based in Singapore now. So it's been also nice to meet some South African librarians here during the course of Charleston. Having conversations with them also reminds me that conversations surrounding inequity for researchers and communities in the global south, there's a lot of intersection between regions and similar challenges. So I think it's good to have those dialogues across regions. So coming from wearing editorial hats, it's been interesting coming to this conference listening to matters of access and visibility. Obviously a lot about open access, some really topical panels on OA and funding challenges related to that. But what I wanted to bring to the floor today is the fact that inequity really begins very early on in the publishing process, and we see that play out in commissioning. So it's not even about early career researchers having a seat at the table. It's about them being able to find a chair in the room to start with. Also, when we talk about inequity, I want to highlight from my perspective that we're talking a lot about inequity from sort of geographic perspectives and covering South and East Asia. We know that Hong Kong, Singapore are much better research than our research communities in Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and developing economies. So that's one point. The second is that humanities, we also see huge divergences in resources across disciplines, and humanities scholars in particular worldwide are stretched. So you can imagine how stretched and stressed humanities scholars in developing economies are. I do think editorial and publishers have I'm going to highlight 3 responsibilities here in how we can improve equity. The first is to highlight that training and outreach are absolutely critical. As a commissioning editor, I have had a good resource to come into these emerging communities, conduct training, conduct outreach and publishing workshops. And obviously with what's happening in the AI space, this is more critical than ever. Yes, we know that AI has a lot of potential to bridge things like language gaps, and that's going to be on my case study. But also, it's not even about AI abuse, but AI misuse and a lack of understanding of effective transparency and authorship. And we're seeing a lot of that play out in my list and lists everywhere. The second point I'd like to highlight is the responsibility of publishers and editors to improve diversity in peer review. And this is something I'm really passionate about, establishing book series that have localized boards with local knowledge and critically bilingual capabilities, I think is absolutely essential. And the third point, and I'll leave it at that to hand over to Maya, is the importance of partnerships, working with co-publishers and smaller presses and smaller institutes so that commissioning editors also have an ear to what ECRs are going through, where they're finding difficulties in bringing their research to a wider audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. So, hello everyone. My name is Maya Sari, and I'm the library director at LSL Education Group in Malaysia. In addition to my role within the school network, I currently serve as the chairperson of the School Library Committee under Librarians Association of Malaysia, a standing committee of the IFLA School Library Section, and a joint committee, member of IFLA IASL, which stands for International Association School Librarianship. All right. So my professional work is rooted in the belief that school libraries must function not only as a resource center, but an active partner in teaching, learning, and research, which is, I believe, maybe some of you didn't know what is our main job scope. All right. So in my school, I lead the development of our information literacy module that integrates research skill for our students. For your information, I'm working with the international school, and we are following Cambridge syllabus. All right. So apart from that, I also teach the student the ethical use of information, including AI tools. Right. So the module that we design must align closely with our school vision and mission. And apart from that, beyond student learning, I am a part of research department committee in my school, where we actively encourage teachers and staff, which we had research session during their annual training. So our founder encouraged them to conduct action research in their own classroom and professional practice. So in summary, my work sit at the intersection of literacy, research culture, and professional growth. Okay, so for the case study, maybe later on I will share about my own experience, starting from the library executive, a part-time researcher, and now at my current position. Okay, so I pass the time to Sarah.
Thanks, Maya. My name is Sarah Crowley-Vigneault. I'm coming to this panel with a little bit of a mixed background. I started my career in publishing, in fact, working for publishers such as Wiley and Springer Nature, both in Europe and in Asia. Then a couple of years ago, I made the shift to sort of more content strategy and AI strategy, working mainly with stakeholders in emerging economies, notably sort of in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So my thoughts here is that we often equate the equity conversation to an affordability problem, and which is, I think, accurate to some extent, but I also feel that there's a case for a problem with systems design, sort of in our ecosystem. So affordability is not necessarily always about cheaper content. It's about creating packages, tailoring flexible packages which are suitable to specific institutions, smaller schools. I think we have a lot of big deals, big packages which are suitable to some universities, perhaps more in the States, more in Europe. But that is my first thought about affordability. Discoverability, discovery of content, obviously absolutely key. Even if there is a huge amount of content being published in local languages or local presses, just regional journals as well. If there is no discovery, there's just no visibility, so it just makes no difference. And then I feel that the AI tools is like this extra layer. So, of course, any student can access open source AI tools, and they will go so far to help them with navigating academic literature. But ideally, students need narrow AI. They need AI tools which are specifically designed for researchers. And these tools need to have responsible licensing, of course. They need to provide full referencing in support of these younger students. And key, and I think my panel presenters, colleagues have referred to this already, training. Training to use AI tools, but training also to use them responsibly, to understand the ethical implications to using AI tools as they move forward in their careers. Because ECRs are, it's a bit generic, isn't it? But they are the sort of future of research. What they take forward is going to define who we are going forward. So, yeah, in summary, I think that one way we can support equity for ECRs is by looking again at our ecosystem, focusing more on collaboration, on partnerships, as Alex said, rather than sort of the existing silos that we have currently. And this is actually a really good time for me to stop and look at the results of our first poll. So thank you to those who scanned the QR code. Unsurprisingly for Charleston, we are a fairly good mix of sort of library information services and publishers with 9 library information services people and 6 publishers, content providers. Unsurprisingly, it's Charleston, so we don't really have any ECRs. But I think this is where the second half of this session, we can talk about how we can take this session forward, outside the room. We hope this discussion doesn't finish at 12:30. Anyway, the next step for us is to share with you some case studies that we each have, which have been developed in our own environments. They may be really small scale, they may be sort of more medium scale, and it's to highlight what has worked for us. So some examples of that, and I will pass back to Chris for that.
Thank you very much. So, as I mentioned in my introduction, I'll basically be sharing the results of a little unscientific survey that I did with some of our research students. But I was really pleased with their support because in the current course, Scholarly, an Introduction to Scholarly Communication and Publishing, we have about 200 of our research students enrolled. And 70 of them responded, which I thought was really good. They had no incentive other than I said to them, I'm going to a conference and I'd really love to get your insights into what you need. So I'm pleased to share what their biggest concerns were. The first 2, probably not surprising, choosing a journal. They really need, and I think a recurring theme on the panel is going to be training and sort of education, right? So choosing a journal, and that's understandable. There's been a real explosion in the number of journals that are out there. One thing that we highlight in our training is, the need to be on the lookout for predatory journals, and that's becoming more and more challenging over the years, right? Because the line is becoming increasingly blurred in some instances. The second major concern was just getting published. Getting published, obviously I mentioned, it's essentially a requirement, a graduation requirement for them. So they really, really need that support. And of course, choosing a journal is related to that, but just simply following some of the basic rules, right? Which is, read the submission guidelines of the journal that you're interested in. Kind of make the case for the paper, for the manuscript that you're submitting, etc. But one I really wanted to drill down a bit more is the cost of OA publishing, because that did come up. And as was mentioned, Hong Kong is actually fairly well resourced. So our library does have, I've actually lost track, I think it's 15 now, transformative agreements with major publishers, Taylor and Francis, Springer, and the latest one is Sage. And our early career our research students are eligible for that. So as many of you know, transformative agreements apply to all of our researchers, not just faculty. But even then, a full 20% said that indicated that publishing costs had prevented them from submitting to the journal of their choice, which I thought was a pretty high number given how well resourced we are. And I just want to actually quote one student's response. The publication fee would just eat up a month of living expenses. I would have had to starve myself in order to publish the paper for free and open access. So I ended up choosing a different journal with paid access. So it really is a factor for our students. As for what would be valuable to them, the number one thing they highlighted was mentoring. Mentoring, I think, from faculty, but I think librarians could also play a role there too. Support in preparing their manuscript and identifying the right journal to publish in. So again, these are things that we at HKBU Library have always tried to help our students with, but this really reinforced the need for that continuous training and support. In terms of AI publishing, perhaps unsurprising, 90% are already using AI tools in some part of their research process, with writing assistants being the most popular use case. So again, huge training opportunities there too, and of course the ethical aspects as well. So yeah, as reflecting on those results, I'm really thinking we need to do more. I mentioned that the course that we have at the library is very well established. We've been doing that for almost 10 years, and we do refresh it regularly, but there's probably more that we can do, especially with the big changes in the landscape that we've seen. So I'll leave it there and pass it to Alex.
Okay, so the case study that I'm going to bring for today relates to language and limitations. I went to a panel yesterday where someone said, let's remember that English is not a proxy for quality, and let's keep that in mind while we discuss this. But the case I want to bring forward is a co-publication arrangement that Springer has with several ECRs members from Indonesia, so local presses. These presses are publishing in English, but mostly in Bahasa Indonesia. So the challenge has been, well, initially this co-publishing partnership, or the partnerships were multiple with slightly different variations in the model, was to offer a route to translating from a Bahasa into English and then publishing the English language text for a wider distribution market, while at the same time protecting the local press partner and their model. For example, they would only grant us English language rights, so they still had full other language rights. They could also then keep their local language edition for free in a repository or whatever model they followed, for free access if for example, one press partner used a free access model. So that was back in 2016. But what we found was that, of course, because it was a human translation process, enormous costs attached to doing the translation, and then the insurmountable hurdle of going through all of that cost and all of that effort, sending the manuscript to us in English, and then it failing its peer review. Because, of course, the translation, it may be done by a translator who is effectively bilingual, but not a subject expert. And so a lot of nuance would be lost. Fast tracked now, where we're seeing DeepL offering faster tracks to translation. I will say from the get-go, as someone in the humanities, I would take auto-translation with a bucket of salt because, of course, we see it proving very effective in disciplines like quantitative social sciences and economics, but far less effective in literature and philosophy. But what it does do is offer us as a publisher a chance to look through their list and work through their foreign language titles and say this is of interest, this has potential, and also allows them a fast track free service to get a version in English very quickly and essentially free, and then to devote whatever resources they were applying for translation to English language editing, which saves them lots of time and money. I do need to add, of course, that this also, looping back to the problem of AI ethics and misuse, when we're applying a DeepL translation to foreign language text, and I've piloted this with Japanese and Chinese and Bahasa, it's translating a lot. They are using foreign language sources in their work. So then it's auto-translating those sources, which then in turn come up as uncredible because they are not actually understanding that you need to include the original language source. So this is part of what I mentioned on the training side of things, that we really need to show how to do that if you're using auto-translation as a service. And that also comes down to pushing back to the author to remember that even though you are leveraging the benefits of AI, the authorship and the responsibility of authorship is still on you. And that's really important to emphasize. And then looping back to my other point about diversity and peer review, which I mentioned earlier, what I also tried to do in my list in tandem with these co-publication arrangements was start a book series called Engaging Indonesia, which is an interdisciplinary HSS series, which is focused on Indonesia and transdisciplinary HSS research in Indonesia with a local bilingual editorial board. So they're locally based Indonesian scholars, but they're also international, very reputable across disciplines, which also gives me the opportunity to identify work that really has potential and also help to counter the bias that I think ECRs are facing in having their work fairly evaluated. So I hope that's helpful. And thank you.
All right, so today I would like to share about in my early stage of my career, I found that two main challenges. Okay, so first was helping the top management clearly to understand the real role of the school library within the school ecosystem. Second, the lack of local research, means that the current elites on school library in Malaysia. So I think the research finding is important for us because I could use that as a solid evidence to support and justify this role. So at that time, many decisions about the school library were still driven by perception, not by the data. At that time in Malaysia, basically, we at that time lack of the research about the school library. So based on this, I decided to start with research by pursuing my PhD in information management, focusing on school library management and information literacy. So in 2017, my first publication was a proposed framework that demonstrates how school library could contribute to improving students' interest, literacy, and academic achievement. So by that time, I was fortunate that my university, UiTM, sponsored the publication fees and the conference fees. So I feel motivated after that to do research and publish more and more. So then currently my current principal, so she allowed me to do some experiment in my classroom from the finding that we have done. All right. So from there, I continue publishing several journal and book chapter. So in 2022, I take another step by forming an independent research group specifically on school library. So my team member is from Indonesia, Croatia and Nigeria, because I want to see how another country do compared to not only in Malaysia, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm working with the international schools, so I want to have a perspective from another country. So this led to our first research project, and surprisingly, we won a few innovation awards about our research. All right, so it was a real turning point actually, because it exposed me to an international school setting through a real case study. So then we continue with the research, which I implement our finding into the school library. So what I can say, maybe for me as a young researcher, we need help and support in terms of mentoring. So the support from the publisher, and of course support from our organization. Okay, so that's sharing from me today.
Thanks very much, Maya. Just before I start my case study, the second poll is live if you would like to answer. The question is, in your view, what is the biggest barrier facing ECRs in emerging research communities today? My case study focuses on a fairly small university library, which is very research constrained. So I've picked one in the Philippines, but this is the type of stakeholder that I tend to work with across the board in Asia, in Africa. You mentioned Nigeria, actually, that's one of the countries we see a lot of interest in this. So this small school was very resource constrained, which was a challenge in a lot of different ways for the ECRs there. Lack of access to much content at all. No specific AI tools and no training. So three main barriers, I think. The ECRs were struggling to discover content. When they did discover the content they hit a paywall. And they had access to some AI tools, but they tended to be sort of open source. And there wasn't the training or the awareness to sort of leverage those tools in an appropriate way. So in this case, the university, small, I say school, but it is a university level school. So they took a sort of a phased approach to this. So the first thing they did was to adopt a small tailored package of content. So they worked with us to do that. And they were able to expand the amount of content they had access to in a way which was appropriate for what their students needed. Not a big package, just something which was a lot more tailored. Fully licensed because, so I'm representing Zendy. We work with publishers to provide this access in a different way to different types of schools. Once they had access to the content, they also integrated just one or two very lightweight AI tools. So the aim here wasn't to integrate, cutting-edge AI at this stage. It was just to start getting a few tools integrated into the platform. So I believe they went for an AI research assistant, which was integrated into their library platform, so to start answering queries. The assistant was trained on all of the library and the university content as well, so it could help with training, answering questions which were more practical, perhaps not literature linked. And alongside that, they had free onboarding, but also free training, both for the librarians and for the ECRs. So this was about building awareness of what research-specific AI tools can do, building confidence in using them for discovery purposes. But a specific module of that training was ethics, sustainable AI. So how can you use these tools responsibly in your career going forward? And I think this is a learning curve for all of us as AI evolves. We want to keep learning how to do this in a responsible manner. So these were students taking the first steps in that way. So the result here was not about major changes. As I was saying, it's not about cutting-edge AI or huge budget changes, to be honest. This was enabling practical first steps for this institution. And I think this is a modest shift, but it's a way in which we can start supporting equity for ECRs. It doesn't require massive budget changes. It doesn't require a huge amount of integration into library platforms, but it provides the basics that ECRs need to get started, access to the content they need, access to good AI tools which are going to help them, and the training, which of course we've been talking about a lot today, to make sure that they're using those tools responsibly going forward. And I think it's also important that this is done at this pace so that universities or the institution can do it in a sustainable way and build on it going forward, so that this was a 1-year pilot. We want to see it going into year 2, year 3. We want to see this institution building on what they've done here. So that is what I wanted to share with you today. It's one approach to supporting ECRs in the region. I'm just looking at some of the results from poll 2. I think we're quite split in terms of sort of the biggest barriers facing early career researchers. Cost of access to literature. I mean, that's fair enough. Visibility, of course. Someone has mentioned incentive systems and metrics. And many of you have spoken about sort of skills, infrastructure, institutional support as well. We also had a fair amount of feedback on the WOVA app prior to the session, and we were interested to see less, in fact, about access to content, but more about support, mentorship, training. So again, this is a theme which is really coming back. So I'm going to move us on to the next poll. I'm actually going to forward to poll 4. We're sort of 1:15, so I think we're to time, right? And this is the part of the session where we're really keen to involve you. So the answer, the question is, if you could change one thing or do one thing over the next year to support ECRs, perhaps your ECRs at your institution or more widely, what would that be? And while you think about that, I'm going to ask the panel to respond as well. So I'll pass to you, Chris.
Thank you very much. I very cleverly, I think, I put this question into the survey. So I actually asked for our students what would be one thing that could be done. And I hope it doesn't come across as too jokey, but the one that I picked to share is that in relation to open access publishing, basically, can we get the first one free? Yes. And well, it is a jokey one, but I think I'm semi-serious about it now, because I think with things like ORCID and being able to identify individual researchers, it could theoretically be possible, but I don't know how practical it would be. But maybe more seriously, just bringing down barriers to open access publishing for our early career researchers.
From my side, I think I want to emphasize the partnerships aspect of the 3 points I raised at the beginning. I think that partnerships are through co-publishing local presses, smaller institutes. We're doing more and more institutional series. I think that's really a way of getting that ear to the community that we need to see where they're facing the major roadblocks, particularly for ECRs. And I think to refer back to the case study, the possibilities presented by the acceleration in using technology for translation is something that really excites me. So I'm hoping that we can expand within my own list the amount of languages we're working with, and then also to partner with more presses. I'm in discussion with one in the Philippines. I'm in discussion with one in Taiwan. And as we expand that, there are just more and more possibilities for ECRs in those communities whose excellent research has so far been isolated to that language community. So I'm hoping to see more of that in the next year.
All right, so from my point of view, I would like to see training and support. Because as I mentioned earlier, in my school, most of the teachers, they still new to the research, okay, but then they are encouraged to do action research. So how are they going to do without support, without training, right? So I believe that they have a lot of innovation in teaching and learning, which is they can share and they can implement in the classroom. But when I consult with them, seems like they didn't know where to start, how to start, and then what kind of topic they should choose, which journal they should submit, right? But because for my school, they are willingly to pay for the fees of publication, but they lack of the of course time, because the workload, the teachers, because my school we offer starting from pre-primary until year 11, so all the teachers, they are full for the whole day. Then but they want to contribute, but then in terms of the workload and also the support and training, they lack of that. So I think if they get all this support, I believe that they know how to do it. All right, that's all from me.
Thanks. Thanks, Maya. And thank you to those who are answering the poll's question. I'll come to that just after my couple of thoughts. Essentially, I would like to see something really practical happen. I think sometimes we answer this kind of question with sort of these really broad concepts, reduce costs or something like that. And I would really like to take this session forward into something maybe like a pilot, for example, a one-year pilot, bringing together an interested library or university in the region with a platform, perhaps with publishers, who are able to bring all these strands together. So perhaps to enable affordable access. A lot of the time, it can't be free access because everyone is working in a certain way, and I think free is not the word, but affordable. It's got to be manageable. I think that's the way forward. We would want to see that pilot providing access to AI tools. And again, I'm thinking narrow AI tools which have been specifically designed for researchers. I would want to see training there as well, be it for the librarians, for the ECRs, perhaps a group of ECRs who are happy to sort of be part of that pilot. And actually, Alex, you were mentioning sort of, or was it you? I can't remember. Sort of publishing training, sort of how to publish. That can be a part of it as well if a publisher were on board. And then training also, of course, on the AI side, because it's about discovery. We want this to be a part of it. So I would like to see something practical like that, and I would like to then see something come out of a pilot like that, be it a free and open source training course from the learnings of that group, maybe a white paper to sort of promote what the pilot's doing, and to support ECRs who are outside the pilot at that stage. So I think the aim again is not a major shift, not requiring too much budget. It's just changing the way we approach the issue of this sort of lack of equity for ECRs in emerging research community. So improving access, improving confidence, improving efficiency, and improving inclusion, essentially. So let's take a look at what you thought as well. And please, if someone is not too shy, do just put your hand up and speak to us. So Maya, you can take a look as well. Okay, so training is coming up a lot. Training and support, mentoring, lowering the cost of training, which I think that's that's a good one. Realistically, training can't be free. Maybe the first module can be free. The first session can be free, and afterwards, it's about making it affordable. It's about making it sustainable. We have what's that? Awareness of TA? Transformative agreements. Okay, is that one that perhaps one of you would like to address at all? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a one that's we're always thinking about, because it's surprising, even though we think we do our best to make known to our community what TAs are available. It's interesting to see that even faculty, I think our first agreement was in 2021, and many of our faculty are still not aware that we do have these transformative agreements in place. We do mention them in our training, but maybe we do need to surface that a bit more for our research students, just let them know that this is available to them.
I think there's been a lot of talk, obviously, about APCs and journals during the conference, and less about moving from a gold OA to diamond OA within the books model and open access. So, I think I'd like to see more conversations coming out about that and how to do it in a scalable way, because we see many publishers are trying this model, but how to make it scalable on a larger scale would be quite interesting to discuss, building from the TA conversation. And from the training side of things, just to add that, publishers, a lot of the time when we're doing outreach, we are not doing it at any cost from the publishing side. It's part of our community building and engagement activities as commissioning editors. So just important, I think, to communicate that to researchers that even though we're not always able to be there in person all of the time, doing webinars and having access to that information, publishers and commissioning editors are always quite ready and keen to provide, because, it just makes the quality of what we're receiving in terms of proposals and manuscripts better. So that's something we're really actively involved in.
Thanks, Alex and Chris, for that. And Alex, you also sort of addressed APCs as well. I also see collaboration opportunities. That's something we've spoken about quite a lot, I think, over the last hour. Partnerships, collaboration. Maya, perhaps is that something that you would like to talk about? Basically, how you might move forward with partnerships, collaborations. Is that something you already do? Is that something?
All right, so when we talk about the collaboration and partnership, which is in my team, we have one member is the lecturer from university in Nigeria. So three of us, we are collaborating, which is practically we are the practitioner. So we just transform what we have done on a paper. Then she will advise in terms of academic writing, and in terms of statistics, how you're supposed to write everything. So, and then apart from that, we also, four of us, we already publish book chapter, article journal, which is, I believe this one, it doesn't, we didn't have to pay so much cost, because four of us, three of them, they have their own strength. So they know, oh, we can publish over here, we can publish over there. So the most important thing is the partnership and networking. So when we have networking, we have we have a partner from different countries. So it will make the young researcher, so they have a motivation to publish more. Yeah.
Thanks, Maya. Is anyone in the room would like to ask a question, not via the poll? No, feel free to put your hand up. I'm not going to pick on anyone. Someone has put something quite interesting in here, and I wonder if they're brave enough to stand up. Emotional labour. If you could change one thing in the next 12 months, it would be emotional labour. Would you like to say a little bit more? No, I think that was really clear, and that was a really lovely point. I don't know how we're doing for time, because I wanted to see if Chris had anything to say about student well-being in regards to the topic today.
In 30 seconds or less. In closing, no, I do worry about our students because of this pressure that they feel. I think, again, it's a great point, and maybe it's something we need to work into our training and support, that, it's not the end of the world. I often talk, I guess I touch upon it sometimes when we talk about rejection, because that's something, actually in the survey, it came up in some of the qualitative comments like that rejection is a terrible feeling. But often in the publishing context, it's a positive thing. So I often encourage them to say, oh, well, it's rejection, but also if your submission has been done correctly, there'll be lots of good feedback, and you can build upon that and to try and frame things in a more positive sense. So, but yeah, just maybe directly addressing it in terms of the psychological well-being, having that top of mind, I think will be good as we design training and design our support. That was more than 30 seconds, I'm sorry.
Well.
Thank you, Christopher. I want to ask one question regarding you, that I am suffering one thing. I am Sandeep Kumar Singh, just Senior Library Information Officer from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Rishikesh, India. I am facing one problem. Whenever any researcher came in front of me, he asked me, sir, how will you decide this is the predictory journal or not? Then after I show him, this is not in Bell list, this is in Scopus list, this is in Web of Science list, like this is in PubMed, that's why this is not a predatory journal. But what should be the exact formula for prescribing them? This is not the predatory journal. Have you anything like this?
It's a really tough. So if I understand the question correctly, is how do we teach about predatory journals? And it's not. Well, maybe it was never this straightforward, but I don't know if you're in the past we used to teach, predatory journals, their website is like terrible, it's the terrible language, and they're one thing we used to tell them is if they're charging a very low APC, then that's a sign. They're not really doing anything. They're taking your $50 and putting your paper immediately up on their website. But of course, and it's another impact of AI, right? That you can have a very convincing website. So we do have to teach them, and I think mentoring comes into it again, and coming to the library. And I found that faculty are very almost deferential to librarians. Like, librarians will be able to tell what is predatory and what is not. So that's a very simple answer. Come and ask your librarian. If it's predatory or not, we will give you our expert advice. In fact, I have one professor friend who's constantly forwarding me emails like, Chris, is this predatory? Chris, is this legit? And I'm happy to answer him each time. I have a video that part of our scholarly communication course. I'll be happy to share the link with you too, where I spend about 10 minutes looking at a predatory website and going through the various points. But one thing we always say is that it's not clear cut. There are things, there are borderline cases, and sometimes it depends. Sometimes it may not be the most prestigious venue, but it's still legitimate. It's not a hoax, or it's not there to steal your money or anything like that. So, yeah, it's a very complicated, nuanced question. But thank you for it. Yes.
Thanks very much, Chris, Alex, Maya. I think we're out of time, so I wanted to thank you. I think the conversation's been really interesting from our perspective. Mentorship training has really come out as something which we need to focus on. Collaboration is something, partnerships are something else that we want to be focusing on. And I would add just one last thing to finish the session, which is small scale. I don't think we have to start big. I don't think it has to be expensive. I don't think it has to be huge or cutting edge. I think taking those first steps can be quite feasible if we do it together and we do it on a fairly small scale. So we're super keen to continue the conversation here, online, in different ways with you. So all that remains is thank you very much to everyone for coming, and wish you a good end to the Charleston conference.
Thank you.